Hello everyone, my name is Luna and welcome back to this new Speedpaint. I'm drawing the love potion or the crystal heart potion. I think I just called it the love potion. My memory is already failing me. I'm very nervous, as you probably can tell. I actually wrote a script for this video and, well, it's not amazing. In any case, let's just focus on the video. As you could see briefly before I started doing the line art, I actually had a quite detailed sketch for this. And that's because, well, basically I just get very nervous for these things and I don't like not having a plan or like any direction to go on and filming myself doing a bunch of different things and then never using them. So I basically sketched the whole thing out so I really knew what I was doing before I even went in and recorded it. Yeah. I know it's very helpful to see the sketching phase and it's very informative and I like to see that part with other artists too, so I should just include it next time or maybe make something smaller which I'm less nervous about to like at least show you my process. But for now that's how I did it for this video, and I thought you might want to know, hey, why was there a very detailed grayscale version of the potion? As you also can see, I'm doing, as I was doing the line art, it's already past now, but at least for the crystal parts, that I'm constantly flipping it and I'm trying to mirror it because, well, it's crystal, it would be symmetric. This would have been a lot easier had I drawn the entire thing right side up and later just rotated the full flask, because now I can't exactly mirror it because I'd have to rotate it to get it exactly right, and it didn't always get exactly right. So yeah, if you happen to draw something like this yourself, draw it first just like on center, right side up, so when you mirror it like the line art or anything else, you don't have to adjust. It's a lot easier. I should have done that, but I didn't. Alright, here you can see more of the gray scale sketch under it as I'm doing the line art for the liquid. And well, yeah, there isn't much to say about this except I'm doing this line art so the edges will be clean. I didn't want to like use a lot of line art in this piece. Like I was just going back and forth between wanting it to be more realistic but also sort of not knowing, like I know that realism doesn't have line art, like it doesn't have hard lines, but I'm used to working with line art, so I find it a lot easier to just draw the line art and then fill in areas. As you can see here, now I'm choosing a color palette, and as this is sped up, you can imagine how long it actually took me to like find the colors I wanted. I actually just like this took me a really long time. I wasn't sure if I wanted more pinkish, like liquid, or if I wanted it to be more reddish. And I went back and forth and eventually it became a whole lot of colors, as you can see in the end product later. I also did the liquids very, very different than I normally do. Well, I always do the liquid different from all the other times because I'm still learning and my style hasn't really, like I have a style, but it's more defined by what I can't do rather than a conscious choice of doing things the way I do. That might be like very strange to hear, but I'm just like, there are some things I do pretty great, but I'm not that amazing of an artist. I'm still learning and there's a lot of things I can't do well and I wish to improve on. That's also why I find it very hard in these videos to give advice and why I don't know if I should ever, or at least not make a tutorial yet. Like I can help artists that are not as skilled as I am yet. Like I'm not a beginner, but there are a lot of things I do in ways that a professional artist would probably be like, yeah, that's no, that's not a smart way, or you know, this, like if it's a conscious style then okay, but you're clearly just doing this because you don't know how to like do it any other way. Well, I'm not explaining this well. We're going with it. In any case, this liquid ended up being very stylized in a very different way than I was expecting. I had 2 versions of this liquid like sketched out. That was also one of the reasons I made 2 grayscale versions, because I wanted to at least have an idea of, okay, how am I going to do this liquid? And I ended up going with a way more stylized, sort of stripy version, not as like see-through at all as other liquids. It sort of looks like a liquid, but not really. It's all over the place. I mean, it ended up looking pretty cool with all those hearts and shapes in it, and I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out, but it's only because of those drops at the top it looks liquidy. Otherwise, not really. It's kind of a mess, really. It's a bit too much. A bit way too much. But hey, it looks cool, and I'm still learning, and I should practice a lot of these things on smaller scales before I try to put them all together in this huge project. Like this Speedpaint, this drawing took me very long, like most of my potion drawings. I just always go overboard. I always think, okay, this time I've got it. This time I've got it planned out. I know what I'm gonna do, and it's always a surprise what ends up happening. This might sound weird, but I honestly, like, I have an idea in my head, but the potion always turns out very different. Like, very, very different. The liquid is never the same. The glass is never the same. It's a surprise how it ends up looking, even for me. So yeah, I'm probably not the best example at all, but hey, that's okay. We're now starting to get to the part where I am doing the crystal or the glass or like the bottle or however you want to call it. I actually, this time around, like I made a crystal potion before, the Crystal Galaxy potion, and in between there I've drawn like a few gem things that were more simple. So I sort of I had a little more experience this time, so it went smoother than the Crystal Galaxy potion, definitely. And it probably was the smoothest process of this entire drawing. Even though it took long, I at least felt like, yeah, I've got a plan, I know what I'm doing. Unlike with basically everything else in my life. Wow, that suddenly got very... Let's just move on. The idea was, I was using the Lineart to color all the facets easily, to fill it in, and I was going to use a thicker Lineart as on top of those, so I wouldn't have any empty spaces. But later I decided I actually didn't want any Lineart because, well, the more realistic look and because I think it would look neater, but that also meant I had to fill in every single pixel around the edges and make it more straight, like by hand. Like, I didn't have to fill it in all by hand, so still think it was faster, but I still had to do a lot of readjusting. And I also had different, I had basically what's supposed to be a light layer, a midtone layer, and a dark layer. And the dark layer being the purple, and the midtones being the more pinkish ones, and the lights being the more peachy ones. I had them on different layers, and they would be transparent. But that meant that if there was any overlap, you would see that, and it would break the illusion. So I had to make sure that everything was not too small and not too big. So that took a while. And then I did add, in the end, a bit of a line art slightly over it, because it would define the edges more, and you could briefly see I was looking at another potion there as a reference. I used that as one of my inspirations of, okay, how do I want the glass to look? Because that looked very amazing. I used a lot of references you didn't see, and most of them I used in the preparation process. Here I'm basically adding all the little shines and shadows that a crystal would have. The light is coming from the top left, and basically all the edges where the crystal meets, one edge would reflect that light and the other edge would then be in the shadow. And I tried to just mimic that by having sort of softer light and then very harsh less faded out parts of light to like have that crispness. And I think it's turned out looking pretty good. Here I'm working on the part it was actually supposed to be silver, and I just struggled so much with this. Like, I've drawn metal before, but I don't know, something about this time, it doesn't look like metal. It looks like another sort of crystal. And I actually erased a whole lot of it. Like, it went by very quickly, but if you go back, you can see that I just like completely erased a lot of the work I did and started all over. But I knew that like metal has these very intense dark and light parts. That's what makes it metal. Like the metal textures are very harsh because they're highly reflective. And I just couldn't get it right. I need to practice my textures more. Again, don't use me as an example. I have not the right attitude to practice and before I jump into something at all, at least when it comes to drawing. So yeah, I mean, it ended up looking pretty good. Like, it looks cool, but it's not metal. It's something. I also then realized, oh hey, wait, this would cast a shadow. I hadn't thought about the shadows at all and how it would like have them interact with everything, because a lot of this is translucent and that makes adding shadows very hard. So yeah, here I was thinking I had it all thought out. Oh, we're at the smoke already. This is going fast. It's a speed paint, but I was like, oh hey, I have 20 minutes to fill with talking. That's a lot of stuff I have to say, but it's going by very fast. Sorry for me being so rambly. I'm actually a little sick. I've got a headache and such. But I've been procrastinating on this video for quite a while, and this is one of the few times I'm alone and I can record without other noises in the house, like just disturbing the recording. So yeah, I was like, now or never. I just gotta do it, and hopefully this turns out okay. I know that the rambliness of the last video was an issue with some people, and I'm trying to work on that, along with like trying to write a script and just then completely ignoring it. I've got to learn to. I'll figure something out, I hope. Just like with this smoke. I had never drawn smoke before this painting, like probably at least a couple of times, but I hadn't practiced it. I hadn't drawn smoke in this way. I had no clue what I was doing. I'd looked up a few tutorials beforehand, and I kept one open in a tab on the internet, which I sometimes looked at, just like a step-by-step tutorial, and that was it. Like, for my first time doing something like this, I think it turned out pretty well, but I probably should have like practiced it on a smaller scale first before trying to implement it in this huge project of a drawing. So yeah, don't do what I did. I've been saying that a lot this video, but basically do as I say, not as I do. That's a terrible example. Like, that's not good when people do that, but yeah. So that's why you see me drawing in a bunch of different smokes and then erasing it all and starting from scratch. It was supposed to be more like wispy smoke, and I didn't want to have a giant heart coming out, like it's very usual with love potions to just have it be one big heart cloud or something. I wanted it to be like just wispy smoke coming out and maybe some smaller hearts at the end as it all dispersed. And I think I sort of got that across, but well, it didn't fade out at the end, like smoke is supposed to. That's a big thing. Also, the wispy ribbon-like smoke that I tried to draw here isn't really suited for cloud-like smoke. Like, this is a more poofy sort of feeling, while wispy smoke normally goes in a long line up and then starts dispersing and being cloud-like, and that just didn't happen here. So that's also definitely a thing I should keep in mind for next time. And it also just took me very long to draw, because I was figuring things out and I was trying to think of, okay, what's the best way of doing this? And it's smoke, so it's translucent, so I wanted things to overlay, and I think at some point soon you'll see that I'm like adding a background because I realize, hey, if everything is translucent, I need to keep in mind the background because that's important. If things are translucent, the background becomes very important, because if the background is not a compatible color, you can't see it's translucent. If the background is the same as whatever object you're looking through, it doesn't look translucent anymore. If the background is too dark or too light, or actually too close to the darkness or lightness of whatever is translucent, you're not gonna see it. And there will be any moments in the Speedpaint that I'll realize this and be like, oh no, I've gotta set up my background before I continue. And I also just spent a lot of time like redoing parts of the smoke, being like, okay, if this turns around like this and folds in on itself, then you would see it turn here and you would see the lines here, and trying to just show all that. And I mean, yeah, it would probably look, wispy smoke like this would probably look better if it was more simple, so you can really appreciate where it folds in and you see the lines of all the other tendrils. So yeah, and I struggle a lot with this girl for some reason. Here it is. Here I'm like, oh yes, backgrounds, because if the background isn't right, then how are you gonna see the smoke and the translucentness of the crystal heart? And then I realized I hadn't really thought about the background color yet. And I also, I wanted a simple background, not an actual, this object is present in some room kind of background. But I don't do simple backgrounds a lot. I just, I have simple backgrounds, but I don't think about them a lot. I really like it when other artists do them, the sort of gradients or one color background and then these embellishments on the side. I think it can add a lot to a painting or a drawing, but I have, this is what I ended up going with, these weird, curvy white lines and this sort of gradient, because I thought a gradient alone would be too boring. But it doesn't really fit the potion, it's just kind of random. So yeah, I don't actually know how I would even practice that, but that's something I need to practice. And I tried to, I wasn't sure if I wanted the background to be very light so the smoke would stand out, or very dark so it would stand out. And I also was later, because my very earliest sketch had a lot of smoke coming from behind the potion as well, I wanted to add some kind of magic glow to the smoke or to the potion, and you can see me briefly do that soon. And then I erased it all because it was well, yeah, but it doesn't really feel like it. And here I'm trying to add smoke inside the glass, because I actually planned on doing that, sort of having smoke fill up the container and then come out, but it looked more like it was smudgy and dirty rather than smoke, so I removed that too. And here I'm doing all these little shinies, and soon I'll erase it and we'll be at the end of the Speedpaint, and I'll show you a full version of the end product, which means I'm gonna have to re-render this entire video again. And in case that was it, I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry for the rambliness again. I'm gonna show you the end product and how long it took, and I hope I'll see you all next time. Bye!